I woke up to find my husband had suddenly reverted to his 17-year-old appearance. He refused to believe he was married, blushing and gritting his teeth as he said, "I'd rather die than marry someone as vulgar as you." But before he could finish his sentence, a man who looked exactly like him walked in with a dark expression on his face. I murmured softly, "Honey, hold me." Hello, everyone, welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. When I woke up in the morning, I always felt some strange movements by my pillow. I was too exhausted from last night's activities and still half asleep, so I could only let out a dissatisfied whimper. I instinctively wrapped my arms around the person beside me, nestling snugly into their embrace. "Honey, sleep a little longer." But unexpectedly, my usually gentle and considerate husband suddenly broke free from my grasp and pushed me away. "Honey." I opened my eyes in confusion. Only then did I realize the person beside me wasn't Martin. No, he is Martin, a miniature version of Martin, cast from the same mold. Sunlight danced on his tousled hair tips. Unlike his usual sharp and aloof demeanor, his youthful, fair face now carried a faint morning blush, his brows slightly furrowed, exuding an oppressive aura. Meeting my gaze, a trace of darkness flickered in his cold eyes as he spoke in a hoarse voice. "Who are you? Why are you dressed like this?" appearing in my bed. I didn't speak, rubbing my bleary eyes. Am I still dreaming? The Martin before me looked at least 10 years younger. He looked like a naive high school student. I tightened the blanket around my chest and curiously leaned in to examine him. "Honey, you seem to have gotten smaller." Hearing my term of endearment, his long eyelashes fluttered slightly, and he pursed his lips, avoiding my touch as if afraid of catching a virus. Then, with a gaze that could be described as indifferent, he looked at me and said, "Don't talk to me in that disgusting tone. I'm not your husband. Something's wrong." He's really not himself. I propped up my exhausted body and slowly got up, instinctively reaching out my hands as I always did, wanting to act spoiled and ask for a hug. The oversized t-shirt slipped right off his shoulder, revealing a fair expanse of skin. Though he had witnessed similar scenes countless times before, Martin reacted as if it were his first time. Jolting backward like he'd been electrocuted, his back hitting the wall with a soft thud, the tips of his ears instantly flushed red, yet his gaze remained fixed on me. His face was as cold as ever, but his eyes clearly betrayed panic and shyness, along with a hint of curiosity even he hadn't noticed, so utterly different from the composed and mature image I remembered. Disgraceful. "Stay away from me." I was a bit dazed. I vaguely remember that last night, when I was half asleep, it was he who personally dressed me, saying something about wrapping me in his scent. Everything was fine back then. "Why does it seem like you're a different person today?" Before I could speak, he then let out a mocking laugh, his gaze gradually turning cold. "Did the old man send you here? What? Kicking me out of the house wasn't enough, you have to ruin my reputation too." He paused, the scalding hatred surging through his trembling fingertips, then spoke with venom in every word. "You people are truly disgusting." Martin would never speak to me like this. He would never look at me with such cold eyes. He truly looked exactly like Martin, but the ruthless despair emanating from his very bones made me realize with absolute clarity, this was definitely not the person I had spent 5 years desperately trying to redeem. My drowsiness vanished completely in an instant. My mission in transmigrating to this world was to save the villain Martin, in the original book. He was the most vicious and gloomy villain. Due to suffering abuse from his family since childhood, his personality became extremely twisted. After reaching adulthood, he would turn to the dark side for various reasons. Not only kidnapping and imprisoning the female lead but also destroying the male lead's career and orchestrating a car accident to cripple him. And I was the wealthy fiancé forced to marry him. The system made me teach him what love is to prevent him from turning dark. But all I know is acting cute, spending money, and being adorable. Ever since coming to this world, I've been clinging to him, calling him hubby all day long, following him around every moment. We were betrothed since childhood, so calling him husband seemed only natural, yet he always reacted strongly, covering my mouth as if he couldn't bear it. "Don't call me husband. If you want something, just say it outright." I blinked my eyes and cleverly changed my tone. "Martin brother, I want to buy a bag." He promptly issued me a supplementary card, his attitude extremely impatient. "Don't show up in front of me again. I don't like materialistic women like you." I agreed readily, only to turn around and barge into his life. Not only did I move into his house with my luggage, but I also went on a shopping spree with his credit card. dressing myself up like a little cake every day and barging into his black and white world. He was gloomy and sullen. While I was lively and cheerful, whenever he resisted me, I would cry. The system mercilessly mocked. The villain is inherently cold-hearted, so indifferent even when his own mother died. He's just an emotionless monster. You don't really think a few crocodile tears can move him, do you, really? Then what was that thing pressing against me from behind when he was drunk last time? And what about those stolen kisses he couldn't resist planting on me while I was asleep? I remained silent, just crying uncontrollably. Tears streamed from those big, watery eyes without a sound, just pouting and looking at him with a pitiful, wronged expression. 1 second, 2 seconds, he sighed helplessly, resignedly picking up a tissue to wipe my tears, murmuring softly to comfort me, "Why are you crying again? Such a delicate little thing. Didn't you really like that new bag from Ginza the other day? Have Uncle take you to buy it? And those snowflake cakes you were clamoring for yesterday? I bought them and put them in the fridge. Later, Aunt will thaw them out for you to eat. Can you stop crying now? If your eyes start hurting from all the tears, you'll just blame me again." The system was utterly dumbfounded. Wasn't he supposed to be a gloomy villain? How did you turn him into a father-like boyfriend? Who knows? Maybe it's true that a woman who knows how to act cute gets the best in life. 2 years have passed, and not only was I not kicked out of the Meredith family, but I also married Martin and became his reason to keep living in this world. After the system announced that his darkening value had reset to 0 and he would no longer disturb the normal lives of the male and female leads, it never appeared again. Now I have no choice but to call upon the system once again. System, what's going on? It arrived belatedly, responding somewhat sluggishly. Apologies, host. The antagonist from a previous point in the original timeline encountered some issues, causing him to turn to darkness prematurely. If left unchecked, the entire world would collapse. Therefore, I had no choice but to temporarily transport him to this point in the timeline. What you're seeing now is Martin at 17. His corruption level has already reached 99%. If possible, please save him one more time, I beg you. I transmigrated into this world 5 years ago. At that time, Martin had already become a fearsome tyrant. The little Martin before me had the budding aura of a villain, yet was clearly far more naive. He didn't believe what I said, even scoffed at it. Marriage, you and me. His gaze swept over me, his expression shifting from awkwardness to extreme discomfort. Still not daring to look at the crucial areas, he forced himself to maintain his composure and snorted coldly, "I'd rather die than marry a frivolous woman like you." Before he could finish speaking, the door was violently kicked open. A man who looked exactly like him stepped into the room, and an oppressive aura instantly swept through the space. "It's really Martin, the system. Oh no, I forgot your husband is still here." Overjoyed and surprised, I spoke in my usual sweet and soft voice. "Honey." The 17-year-old Martin suddenly blushed at the tips of his ears, retorting impatiently in a low voice, "I told you I'm not your husband." She was calling for me. Martin gathered me into his arms with a darkened expression, his hoarse voice carrying an undeniable authority and barely concealed fury. "Who called you? Don't flatter yourself." As shadows enveloped them, his gaze clashed with the youth Martin's, sparks seeming to fly invisibly between them. I obediently wrapped my legs around his waist, pressed my face against his neck, and hooked my arms around him, yet I could sense the scorching intensity of 2 gazes locked in confrontation. The air was thick with the scent of gunpowder, making every breath feel tense. "Baby, go get dressed in the next room first." Martin gently patted my butt, planted a tender kiss on my forehead, then turned to little Martin, his eyes flashing with a fleeting trace of hostility. "Let's talk alone." I don't know what Martin talked to him about. When he came out, the young man had a displeased look on his face, but the unfamiliar scene before him forced him to believe that he had truly traveled 10 years into the future. After all, there isn't a second person in this world who looks exactly like him, and this frivolous woman is really his wife. I looked at these 2 husbands, one big and one small. I secretly poked the bigger one. Then, thinking I was whispering, I said, "Husband, he's so small, still just a baby." But I underestimated the sensitivity of a teenage boy. The already low-pressure person exploded at the slightest provocation, his face darkening terrifyingly, clearly displaying, "I'm extremely unhappy and you must apologize to me." His bad mood lasted until noon. During lunch, he frowned and clicked his tongue in annoyance, slamming his chopsticks onto the table in frustration. "Enough already. Do you really have to be like this even during a meal? How disgusting is this? Martin is deboning the fish for me. Ever since I got a small fish bone stuck in my throat last time, he hasn't let me eat fish by myself. Seeing this, she gave him a cold, indifferent glance. If you don't like it, you can get lost. So he really did leave. When he left, his face was darker than the bottom of a pot, and he slammed the door angrily. As soon as he left, I sighed in relief. Honey, you were so bad-tempered when you were 17. Martin placed a piece of thoroughly cleaned fish into my bowl. Don't think of him as me. I wanted to say more, but he personally silenced me with his lips. It took him a long while to finally stop. His gaze was deep as he roughly rubbed my lips. Baby, don't you think you owe me an explanation? I'm at a loss for words. How can I explain this? It's all the system's fault. Martin knew about the system. I never intended to hide it from him and confessed everything after we got married. Seeing my expression, he roughly guessed what happened and paused. Is it the system? I quickly nodded, clinging to him and chattering away with my complaints. At the mention of the word redemption, his eyebrows twitched. I'll figure out a way to get rid of him. Leave this to me, and don't listen to what the system says. Since he's from the original world line, he has nothing to do with us in this world. When it comes to others, Martin always appears indifferent, including himself. I hesitated and said, but after all, that's your... No, baby, I can't let you take risks, and what's more, I know very well that only pain can make a person stronger. How else will he seek revenge in the future if he doesn't go through this? He's not that fragile. I'm about to go on a business trip abroad, for at least a month. During this time, you must ensure your own safety first. Can you do that? I nodded. Martin smiled with satisfaction at last. He reached into my clothes, felt my slightly rounded belly, then scooped me up and carried me into the bedroom. I wrapped my arms around his neck, trying to salvage the situation. But honey, he looked so pitiful. His eyes darkened as he lowered his head and bit my shoulder. I'm even more pitiful than him. If you don't believe me, touch and see me. I knew this person was up to no good, no matter if it's red or black. It all turns into yellow in the conversation. Martin, didn't we just, yesterday? I suddenly grabbed his hair tightly, my tone urgent. Don't bite. A soft chuckle escaped him, as if he had reverted to his original, wicked villainous self. He slowly lifted his head, his lazy voice tinged with a hint of hoarseness and a low, trailing tone that sent shivers down one's spine. Why keep bringing him up? This is punishment for naughty babies. I'm on the verge of tears but can't cry. How could someone be jealous of themselves? When I woke up, Martin had already left. The system urged me to hurry up and complete the task. Hurry up, while your husband's away. Quickly snag this little husband. What nonsense about little husband or big husband. Hearing it say that gave me a guilty feeling like I was having an affair. Afraid others might notice something amiss. Martin, before leaving, he gave everyone at home a long vacation. He was worried that I'd secretly experiment with blowing up the kitchen while he was away, so he booked a month's worth of delivery meals from Ruiyun Tower to make sure I wouldn't starve. He waited for a long time, only to be served a table of exquisite takeout, and his face instantly froze. Just this, yeah. I looked at him innocently and shrugged. I can't cook. Married to Martin, I haven't even stepped into the kitchen since. The only time I tried baking egg tarts following an online recipe, I barely got started before blowing up the air fryer. From then on, I was strictly forbidden from going near the kitchen. You don't even know how to cook. Little Martin found it hard to believe. He couldn't comprehend how an adult could lack even the most basic survival skills. But my matter-of-fact expression suddenly reminded him of something. And his face darkened with displeasure. Clearly, it was he himself who spoiled me to the point where I never had to lift a finger. What pushed him over the edge was far more than just that. Everything at home comes in pairs or sets, and the walls are covered with photos of me and Martin together. He stared blankly at the toothbrush on the bathroom counter, unable to believe that someone with his taste would use sky blue bathroom products. Seeing him in such a dazed state, I didn't have the heart to tell him. Sky blue is mine, baby pink is his. He muttered to himself. No way, how could I have married a woman like her? I couldn't help but find it amusing. If he knew it was him who begged me on his knees to marry him back then, wouldn't that make him even more devastated? But I didn't say that. 17-year-old Martin seemed even more irritable than the Martin I first met, less composed, yet more hot-tempered. After finishing the meal, I planned to take him for a haircut. I noticed yesterday that his clothes didn't fit properly. They seemed a size too small for his frame. The overly long hair on his forehead also covered his eyes. giving him an air of listless despondency. No need to ask. It must be Meredith's family, those damned bastards, behind this. Since Martin's mom passed away, Martin's father has shown nothing but utter contempt for his son. Those around him followed suit, eager to trample him deep into the mud. They bullied him, tormented him, and oppressed him. The pain of the past twisted his heart, leaving revenge as his sole obsession. Thinking about how much he suffered before meeting me, my nose tingled with sadness. The system said gloomily, "You don't understand. This is the trendy differential fragmented bangs that all the young people love." I scrutinized him for a moment. Differential fragmented bangs, more like a pot lid, if you ask me. My husband's looks, I'll be the one to protect them. Arrived at the styling studio, 10 stylists stood in 2 neat rows at the entrance to greet us. My personal hairstylist Kevin greeted me warmly. "Miss Song, what look are you going for today?" "Not me, it's for him." I forcefully pushed little Martin to sit in the wheelchair and snapped my fingers. "Give him the most popular hairstyle right now. Make it as cool as possible." Kevin gave an okay sign, but before he could even touch little Martin's hair, he was mercilessly shoved away. He had been coaxed out by me and was now glaring at me angrily. "I won't cut my hair." I coldly pushed his hand away and declared heartlessly, "You must cut it. Do you want to be a savage, Mona?" He gritted his teeth, his eyes almost spitting fire. "Don't think just because you're my OL." Aware of the probing gazes around him, he swallowed the word that nearly slipped out and muttered sullenly, "Anyway, I don't need you to meddle. Why are kids in their rebellious phase so difficult to handle?" I was so angry I couldn't contain myself, and weakly slapped him across the face, the crisp, loud sound echoing through the modest space. He froze. At 17, it's the age when saving face matters most. He seemed not to have expected me to hit him. Just as anger was about to erupt, the next second, I clumsily yet tenderly brushed aside his overly long bangs and gently blew on his slightly flushed left cheek. As my eyes lifted, I whispered softly, as if coaxing a child, "But your eyes are so beautiful, shining like stars in the sky. If they're hidden, I won't be able to see them. I want to keep looking at you." A slap followed by a candy is my go-to strategy when dealing with Martin. I think it should work just as well on his 17-year-old self. The system silently gives a thumbs up. Training a dog, are we? Me, hush, I have my own rhythm. Sure enough, little Martin's anger hadn't even been vented before I effortlessly extinguished it. Everyone averted their eyes, pretending not to notice. Watching his handsome face turn from dark to red, then red to dark, he finally sat down heavily with a face full of slap marks and muttered in a low voice, "Then, as you wish." I patted his head as a reward. He awkwardly avoided my gaze, yet the mirror clearly reflected his fluttering lashes trembling, and his clenched hands suddenly loosened. My heart softened. With the experience of getting a haircut, taking him shopping became much easier. I was in charge of buying, and he served as my bag-carrying tool. Soon, he was covered in shopping bags of all sizes, looking from afar like a moving Christmas tree. Halfway through, he went on strike. "Why should I carry it? I quit." I watched him stubbornly standing there and suddenly felt the helplessness of dealing with a child. With a resigned sigh, I silently took half of the shopping bags, but just 5 minutes later, I winced in pain and let go. The fair, delicate palm bore a deep red mark from the pressure, glaringly conspicuous against the skin. Just as I was about to grit my teeth and lift them again, he suddenly strode over and silently snatched everything from my hands. "I can't find the way, you go first." Stubborn words but a soft heart. I didn't expose him, and the corners of my mouth curled up slightly as I lowered my head. After all, kids still need to save face, with a new hairstyle and a well-matched outfit. For a fleeting moment it gave me the illusion that Martin had returned. The salesperson was quick to read my expression, and seeing that I seemed quite pleased, began to compliment, "You have excellent taste. This is our newly released limited edition. And it looks great on your boyfriend." I shook my head to correct her. "He's not my boyfriend." As soon as the words left my mouth, little Martin's face darkened instantly. The young man couldn't hide his emotions. His expression immediately stiffened, his jawline tensed into a sharp angle, radiating a palpable low pressure from head to toe. He secretly fumed, only to hear me add, "Their family." Instantly, the corners of his mouth, which had drooped, secretly curled up again. The system's notification sounded at the same time. "Villain's darkening value, 80%. You're really something, host. When it comes to training dogs, you've got quite the knack. I'll take that as a compliment." By the time we left the mall, dusk had darkened the sky, the streetlights flickered on one by one. He was still carrying those shopping bags, now even more than when we'd arrived. Perhaps it was too heavy, he unconsciously shook his wrist but didn't complain again. When we reached the bus stop, a bus happened to arrive just then. After boarding, there happened to be one empty seat left. The driver was already waiting for us. I was just about to command him to sit down when he suddenly pressed me into the seat, standing beside me instead. He carefully placed the shopping bag at his feet and muttered, "You sit here, I'll watch the stuff." As I bent down to get into the car, a shadow suddenly fell over my head. Before I could react, something warm pressed against my forehead. It was his palm, cushioning the space between the car door frame and my head. "Be careful." The warm breath brushed past my ear, and I suddenly looked up, meeting his deep, penetrating gaze. Turns out he was afraid I'd bump into the car door. He awkwardly averted his eyes, and after shielding me, he spoke in a gruff tone, "Clumsy, can't you watch where you're going?" I suddenly remembered a few years ago Martin did the same thing, shielding me with his body in the crowded flow of people, afraid I'd be jostled, afraid I'd bump my head. The car was warm and cozy. Looking at his deliberately stern profile and the mountain of shopping bags at his feet, I couldn't help but smile. What a stubborn yet soft-hearted kid. After returning, little Martin and I spent a few peaceful days together. He still wore that grumpy face every day, as if someone owed him $8 million. I gradually got used to it, grumpy face or not. Once he's gone, I'll give Martin a good thrashing. The younger one's mistake gets repaid by the elder. Let's see him put on airs with me then. Until one late night, I was suddenly awakened by the system. Its voice was urgent. "The villain's corruption level has risen. He's emotionally unstable now, with severe self-destructive tendencies. Go check on him quickly." Startled, I hurriedly got up, only to realize a violent storm was raging outside. It suddenly occurred to me that Martin was often beaten and abused by Martin's father as a child, so he would always wake up from nightmares during thunderstorms. Later, he got used to sleeping while holding me, and gradually stopped being afraid. Little Martin's door wasn't properly closed. In sight was a large lump on the big bed, as if tightly wrapped in a heavy quilt, its outline appearing somewhat shrunken. I tiptoed, afraid of disturbing the person inside, and called out softly, "Martin." No response, yet I could vaguely sense that the person inside might be enduring unspeakable pain. I walked over and gently tapped the tightly closed shell, speaking in the softest voice, "Martin, open the blanket." Remembering those nights when he was tormented by nightmares, my heart softened completely, and I added a more comforting tone to my voice, "Martin, it's me, don't be afraid." It took a long time, so long that I began to doubt whether my voice had even reached him, before the blanket finally stirred slightly, and a tousled head emerged. I looked up and met a pair of bloodshot eyes. His muscles were tense, his lips slightly pale, and his dark, ink-like eyes fixed heavily on me. "What are you doing here?" Knowing the kid cared about his pride, I pretended to be scared, pitifully clutching at the hem of his clothes. "It's thundering. I'm a little scared. Can I stay with you?" He looked at me quietly, waiting for me to finish speaking before exhaling a long, heavy breath. "You don't have to do this." His voice was slightly hoarse, shrouded in a layer of mist in the darkness, carrying a certain restrained coldness. "I'm not him. Don't treat me the way you treated him. I don't need your lousy kindness." Coincidentally, a bolt of lightning suddenly flashed outside the window. The deafening sound seemed to explode right beside our ears. Little Martin shuddered all over, breathing rapidly, and quickly buried his head in my arms. "Me," I sighed and tightened my arms around him. My palm gently patted his back in a steady rhythm until his trembling subsided. Still just a child, after all. In my memory, Martin has always been the epitome of maturity and composure. He loves me, pampers me, and with him by my side, I can forever hide within his strong and sturdy embrace. But the 17-year-old Martin was different. He was covered in scars, struggling to survive under the torment of Meredith's family, which shaped him into this stubborn and reclusive demeanor. The system says he's born bad, but I know he's not. No one is born to be a villain. He is cold because his sincere feelings were once trampled upon without mercy. He is irritable and quick-tempered because those around him are like wolves and tigers with ill intentions, forcing him to be wary of everyone. He is stubborn because the only person he can rely on is himself. You must have had a really tough time all these years. By the faint moonlight, I could see the pain on his face. His eyes were misty. It was the growing pain he'd delayed for 17 years, A dense, overwhelming ache welled up from the depths of his heart. I lowered my head and suddenly spoke. Will a kiss make it better? Little Martin froze, before he could react. I moved closer and planted a loud kiss on his cheek, then I cupped his face in my hands and said earnestly, "Don't trap yourself in a cage of pain. You're no longer that abused child, can't you see? Your future self has a wonderful life." I held his hand tightly, looking at him with sincerity. "You're the most important person in my life. Whether you're 17 or 27, I'll always love you. Don't cry anymore. If you keep crying, it'll break my heart." To my surprise, he froze for a moment and didn't angrily tell me to go away like before. Instead, he silently pulled the blanket over his face, revealing only a pair of teary eyes cast downward, and softly muttered from under the covers, "I'm not crying." The system dinged. Villain's corruption level, 50%. A few seconds later, he asked me again in a whisper, "Do you really love me?" "Yes, always, forever." "Then swear it." In the darkness, we linked fingers and made our vow. "I will love you forever and ever. Not even death can part us." Half a month passed in the blink of an eye. Martin called to say he was coming back soon. I was so excited that I could hardly wait to see him the next second. At that moment, a message suddenly popped up. "It's the female lead's wedding invitation. She's getting married." I was somewhat surprised, but when I opened the electronic invitation, I was even more astonished to find that the groom wasn't the male lead. What's going on? Weren't they madly in love back then? "She fled," he pursued, "their love intertwined with hate. I thought it would be a lifelong entanglement. The male lead has pursued her so many times, yet still hasn't succeeded." I didn't hide the news of the female lead's marriage from little Martin. She was the only warmth in little Martin's childhood. She lived next door to the Meredith's house. Every time after Martin's father committed domestic violence, she would secretly pass through the small garden between the two houses to deliver food to the grounded little Martin. In the original text, Martin's later descent into darkness was partly because of her. I think the young Martin must have had feelings for her back then. After hearing my words, little Martin's face showed a fleeting moment of confusion before he quickly composed himself. Staring at the invitation, "I'm going." I comfortingly patted his hair. Many people knew Martin, so I arranged for someone to disguise him, making his appearance resemble that of another person, as I expected. It was an extraordinarily grand wedding. The pearl drapery hanging from the banquet hall's dome intertwined beautifully with cascading white tulle. The bride's favorite peonies and lilies of the valley were artfully arranged into floral towers, exuding a delicate, sweet fragrance. Soon, it was time for the ring exchange. Amid the celebrants' passionate blessings, the bride and her groom shared a fervent kiss, their eyes brimming with love for each other. I felt a pang of emotion. She had once given her whole heart to the male lead, yet in the end, she married someone else. In the end of the story, even the most perfectly matched couple might not necessarily grow old together. Not even the main characters are exceptions. The little Martin beside me was completely absorbed. His eyes held a seriousness I had never seen before. Is there still a trace of longing? Seeing this scene, I felt inexplicably uncomfortable. I was about to call out to him, but after opening my mouth, I still didn't say a word. What could I even say? In the world line he belongs to, I do not exist. The 17-year-old him has yet to meet me. In his original life trajectory, only the female lead who once helped him was the direction his gaze followed. If the system hadn't brought him to this world, perhaps I would just be a stranger to him. I was lost in thought. Suddenly, a shower of rose petals drifted down from above, slowly falling and scattering over the shoulders of every guest. I spread out my hands and caught one of them. He suddenly picked up the wine glass on the table, took a sip, then turned sideways with a flickering gaze. Was it like this when we got married? What? I was somewhat taken aback, not expecting him to ask me such a question, so he repeated once again, was it this grand when you and I got married? The candle flames on the dining table swayed gracefully in response. Amidst the clinking of glasses, crystal goblets produced crisp sounds, while confetti and flower petals danced wildly in the light, immersing the entire space in sweetness and joy. I thought carefully and recalled the scene of our wedding that year, unconsciously revealing a happy smile. Even bigger than this, I said. At first, I wanted to have a destination wedding, but you disagreed. You said you finally got to marry me, and you wanted the whole world to know how happy you were. You were the one who said you loved me, who took me from my father's hand, who placed the ring on my finger. No matter how much hardship you endured before, you never uttered a word, but that was the only time you shed tears. because I said, I do. The young man's thin lips pressed together slightly, and after hearing my words, the tension in his back suddenly eased. Under the light, his eyes shimmered with a peculiar glow, my reflection mirrored in his pupils. He nodded and smiled. That's good. So someone has been loving me from the future all along, then I can rest assured. I didn't have time to ask him what he meant. Fire, fire, help, run, run, ah. A terrified scream suddenly shattered the lively and cheerful atmosphere of the banquet hall. Before anyone could grasp the situation, the front hall's door was flung open by staff members rushing in urgently. Instantly, a thick smoke accompanied by flames swept through the area. Fire, fire, everyone, run, quickly, take the fire escape. Little Martin immediately reacted, swiftly wetting a towel left on the dining table and covering my mouth and nose with it, then grabbing my hand to run outside. My heart was pounding, and an inexplicable sense of foreboding made me glance back. With just one glance, I saw the female lead in a pristine white wedding dress, her eyes wide with fury, her nails nearly dug into the floor tiles as she strained forward, her throat emitting broken sobs. Her husband lay unconscious on the ground, completely unresponsive, and behind her, shockingly, stood the male lead, who hadn't appeared in ages. My pupils constricted in shock. What was he doing here? He was like a vine laced with poison, in no hurry to escape, but instead tightly wrapping his arms around the female lead's waist from behind, a satisfied smile on his face. The smile twisted in the firelight as he dragged the female lead down to hell. If you won't marry me, then let's die together, I gasped, unable to believe it. He's gone mad. He's the one who's turned dark, isn't he? Screams and cries rose and fell in waves. The flickering lights shattered across the floor. In the thick smoke, little Martin grabbed my hand and pushed through the crowd towards the fire exit. Hold my hand tight. Someone bumped into us in panic, and he immediately shielded me behind him, using his back to withstand the jostling. Cold sweat trickled down his chiseled features, but he never let go of my hand. I frantically called out to the system, but there was no response at all. Usually you're always nagging me to do tasks, but now you're as silent as death, not making a sound no matter how much I call. The flames painted the hallway red, the acrid smell of burning making it hard to keep our eyes open. A chunk of debris suddenly fell, nearly hitting us, my heart pounding with fear. I clutched little Martin's hand and ran frantically forward, not daring to stop for even a moment, but for some reason, he suddenly stopped, his hands and feet stiffening as if controlled. Frozen in place, the path ahead was blocked by a crowd. He turned back and gave me a deep look, his voice hoarse as he shouted, "Don't be afraid." A surge of panic welled up in my heart. "Martin, what are you doing?" He didn't answer, only asked me another question. "You will definitely come looking for me, right? What kind of time is this for you to say such things?" I nearly sobbed, gripping his hand tightly. "Nonsense. No matter where you are, I'll find you. Because I came into this world just for you." No sooner had the words been spoken, his gaze suddenly turned sharp as he swiftly pinned me down, shielding me in his embrace. The warm, youthful scent enveloped me completely, pressed against his chest. I could hear his rapid breathing and the wild pounding of his heart. The next second, the chandelier not far away suddenly fell, bringing down chunks of the ceiling as it crashed straight to the ground. The last scene before I fainted was the young man devoutly pressing a kiss to my cheek. He said, "I'll wait for you." The notification sound of the completed task rang in my ears. When I opened my eyes again, it was already dawn. A metallic taste lingered in my throat, and the sting of disinfectant burned my nostrils. As consciousness gradually returned, I struggled to lift my eyelids, the glaring fluorescent light above casting a hazy glow. "Don't move." A fingertip pressed lightly between my brows, the slight roughness of its callous touch sending a shiver through my body. Martin was half kneeling by the bed, his tie askew around his neck. The usually neatly combed strands of his hair were now damp with sweat, his entire being devoid of its usual refinement. Still somewhat dazed, I tentatively asked with a hint of uncertainty, "Honey, you're back, mm." His grip on my hand suddenly tightened, his knuckles turning white from the force. "The doctor said you have a mild concussion, but fortunately it's just some superficial injuries." I wanted to raise my hand to touch his furrowed brows, but he held my wrist, so I resorted to my usual tactic, acting spoiled. "Honey, I want some water." His figure turned to pour water was somewhat unsteady, the glass clinking crisply against the tray. When he turned back, his long lashes were unexpectedly glistening with moisture. I panicked a little. After being married for so long, I had never seen him like this. Martin, sweetheart, I was only away on a business trip for half a month, and you ended up injured and hospitalized. He took a deep breath, struggling to suppress the dark, churning emotions within him, his Adam's apple bobbing violently. If he hadn't protected you so well, I might never have seen you again, baby. What would I do if something happened to you? Mention of the explosion snapped me back to reality, and I anxiously grabbed his hand, shaking it back and forth. Where is he, in such a huge explosion? He must have been hurt shielding me in his arms. No, I need to see him. Which ward is he in? Martin remained silent. Suddenly, I realized something and fell quiet. Before losing consciousness, I distinctly heard the mechanical voice of the system. The answer was on the tip of my tongue. I still held on to a glimmer of hope and asked that question. What about him? Martin gave me a deep, searching look. His cool voice carried a hint of comfort as he reached up to wipe away my tears. Don't cry. He just returned to where he was meant to be. We'll meet again. I saw the female lead again 3 months later. She had lost all her memories in that fire. Upon waking, she miraculously recognized her disfigured husband at first glance. No one knew how they survived that devastating fire. After surviving a great disaster, blessings are sure to follow. On social media, I saw their wedding photos taken at the foot of the snow-capped mountains. I swear by the gods, witnessed by the heavens. From this moment, we are bound as husband and wife, till death do us part. That unfinished wedding was ultimately solemnized in the presence of all creation. The great fire took only one life, the arsonist, Jeff. The male lead of this old-school romance novel. The system always said the male lead's pursuit would lead to a crematorium, but I never thought it would be a literal crematorium, the kind where you're thoroughly dead. To be fair, he wasn't a good person, but he wasn't exactly bad either. The investigation revealed that before setting the fire, he had opened all the fire exits in the hotel and placed enough fire extinguishers in conspicuous locations. Thus, before the fire trucks arrived, the blaze had already been extinguished by the collective efforts of the crowd. Rather than deliberate arson, I think he had meticulously planned his own death. With a grand death, he sought to leave an indelible mark for a lifetime. Unfortunately, he will never know that the female lead has lost her memory. His existence will gradually be forgotten in the corners of time. One ordinary afternoon, I accidentally found an ancient ring under the pillow in the guest bedroom. The moment he saw the ring, Martin raised his eyebrows slightly, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. This is my mother's keepsake. When she was still alive, she said this was meant for my future wife. I thought I'd lost it long ago, never imagined it would be here. After speaking, we exchanged a glance and instantly understood. This was left by him. For some reason, I felt an impulse to cry, so I silently climbed into Martin's arms, tightly wrapping my arms around his neck, and said with a sob in my voice, "What if he still gets bullied after going back? Seeing how happy we are in this world now, he must feel terrible when he returns." Martin had just taken a shower, his whole body exuding a faint, fresh fragrance. At first, he remained silent, his Adam's apple bobbing slightly in the quiet. Then his slender fingers slowly reached out, their pads warm with a faint heat, carefully and incredibly gently wiping away the tears from my cheeks one by one, as he murmured in a low voice, "Never, baby. The reason I've been unwilling to admit that he is me is because I don't want your gaze to fall on anyone else, even if that person is myself." As he spoke, the arm encircling my waist subtly tightened, as if trying to meld me into his very bones. "I know myself well. You've saved me once, and you can save me a second, a third time, so I'm certain that once he meets you, he'll fall hopelessly in love with you. Once you've tasted love, you can never bear to let it go easily again. He will wait for you, until he finds you." As the words fell, the arm around me tightened even more. Martin kissed away my tears one by one, and before I could open my mouth to wail, he firmly sealed my lips with his. I blinked back, the teardrops threatening to fall as I looked at him. A ray of sunlight streamed through the window, turning his hair golden. Then I saw him smile with utmost sincerity as he spoke to me. "Thank goodness, I finally waited for you. Though I didn't find you at 17. The moment you appeared when I was 22, I knew it was you coming to me. Thank you for coming into my world." In a daze, the figure of the boy and his figure seemed to overlap before my eyes, eventually merging into the real him standing before me. Time twists and turns, yet his devotion to me has never changed. Sunlight gradually filled the entire room, and his smile shone brightly in the play of light and shadow. the story in the book has come to an end, but our story is just beginning. Every day from now on is another reunion.